welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I'm your host, Brendan Traynor. My co-host is Leland Faegre. And we should start off talking a bit about Nevada itself right now.
We should?
Yeah, I think so.
I think of that every week. We should probably have some sort of a...
I know, but it's so hard with all the things that are going on. There's major conflicts and so on. But anyway... Governor Sissylak, that's what I called him on my notes.
Very good description.
Yep. He's under fire now because, he's continuing to say Nevada has to be locked down. Las Vegas is a mess. There are the lowest tourism rates in probably forever. I don't know how long, yeah. Mm-hmm. And some of the casinos are only able to even partially open on the weekends. They're not bothering to open during the week.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How about in Tahoe? Are there any comparative numbers for...
I haven't seen any comparative numbers for Tahoe, no.
Because it seems busy there. Mm-hmm. I live there, so, you just kind of get a sense and an empirical look at the highway. I often just glance down towards State Line there and get a sense of whether it's busy or not, just by the amount of cars that are in the vicinity. And it looks busy, so... That's what I know of it.
And northern Nevada has not been as hard hit, so that's one reason why, maybe we haven't covered Nevada as a whole, because most of the action is in Las Vegas. That's where the population center is, where the demographics are so much different
and where
than they are up here.
COVID cases are?
Yeah, that's where most of the COVID cases are. Exactly. I mean, I heard on the news the other day we had 2 fatalities and they were both over 80. Up here in the north. And so far, I mean, that week, I'm not saying we had only 2 altogether. Then we would be like Vietnam. They've had none.
Yeah, right. 3,000 recoveries so far in Washoe County. I heard coming in today.
Okay.
Coming into the biggest little city. Yeah, 3,000. So that number never gets enough attention.
No, they never.
My perspective.
They don't... like to talk about that, and they don't like to talk about the death rate. They talk about the number of deaths, but they don't like to talk about the death rate, which is coming down. So, it's biased. We're not getting the right information from anybody. We can't trust any of these numbers really, because we don't know if it's being undercounted, if it's being overcounted.
And they are also counting other than COVID deaths.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean
numbers.
by overcounted, because most famously recently there was somebody that died in a motorcycle crash.
Yeah, Ron Paul did a segment on that, yeah.
Next thing you know, they'll dig up Lincoln and say he had COVID.
Right. And the positivity for COVID analysis apparently is way overstated.
Right.
Something like close to 100%. I mean, in other words, you go in, you get tested, and there's nobody that's being tested that doesn't have the virus. It's like the pathogen is just everywhere. I've joked in the past that I saw it, crossing the highway on the way up here. I mean, it just seems like the transmissibility of this thing is just like nothing we'd ever seen. And I wonder whether the Chinese didn't know that when they released it on the world. I know we're going to talk about that. I don't think there's any question about that. That was their intent.
I don't think so.
We're going to come to that in the next segment. Is that
maybe?
Right?
Yeah. So, so the only thing I've seen Republican activist Chuck Muth is kind of demanding, where are the Republicans? I don't see a concerted, resistance to what Sissylak is doing so far. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, there aren't too many of them left in the assembly.
Yeah, that's true.
Really,
but what are they doing to get it back?
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
And we can't have as many rallies or meetings because of this darn virus, and so we don't know exactly what's happening.
I asked my assemblyman to come on the show.
Right. Congressman Wheeler, right?
Yeah.
So far,
Assemblyman Wheeler.
He
He didn't respond favorably, and I got back to him and said, well, if that isn't convenient, how about this? And nothing back from him. So
Mm-hmm.
He's afraid to show up on Talking Truth to Power.
All right.
So to answer your question,
Yep.
where's Wheeler?
Where's Wheeler? Where in the world is Carmen de Wheeler? So yeah, I mean, so we're operating in a void here, as so many of us are. There's so much uncertainty. We don't know what the truth is, so we'll just have to see. Yeah. Nevada is at a crossroads just like the country. I mean, if we don't get something going on in Las Vegas, how long are we going to last? How many? I'm not that sympathetic to the teachers' unions, which are, obviously sandbagging. They don't want to reopen.
They don't want to go back.
And that's political more than anything. The more they can do to disrupt the economy before the election, the better off Biden will be.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but the other factors in the economy, maybe we'll get to talk about the two main forces that are driving us here further on in the show.
Well, the good news out of the school aspect of this entire episode is that homeschooling is out of control. It's just very, very successful so far since
and the private schools are opening up.
Private schools are opening,
yep.
And they're much more amenable to some of the changes that they have to make,
right?
Hygienically altered circumstances that they're facing. So, I think it's never going back to the way it was. Mm-hmm. I think if you've ever broken something and try to put it back,
right,
you come to to recognize the fact that it's not going back the same way that it was, and this is no different.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, we'll have to talk a little bit more about this, and we'll have to keep on a little bit more on Talking Truth to Power on top of what's going on in Nevada.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's where our election choices are going to lie, and if Jim Wheeler won't come on, maybe somebody else will come on.
Well, we can extend a further invitation at this point for him to attend one of our shows if he is listening. I know he's on the Talking Truth to Power Facebook page.
Right.
Hi, this is Eddie Floyd. Let me tell you about my favorite non-profit public charity, Wainema Wild Horse Sanctuary, located on the Forsyth Ranch in Hallelujah Junction area. And please go to www.wainemaranch.com. That's WYNEMA ranch.com.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now, back to the show.
Okay, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power. I'm your host, Brennan Trainer, my co-host, Leland Faegre. And
we'll go easy on Wheeler, won't we, if he shows up?
Okay, yeah sure. The invitation is extended.
Yeah.
It's a friendly invitation. I have no problem with Jim Wheeler, except occasionally because he is a little too far on the Christian right, occasionally for my taste, but that's not the main, that's not a big objection.
Right. I've been very impressed with him over the years, and I met him one time at a Ron Paul county convention down there in Douglas, and I liked him. I don't know why he didn't.
He's popular.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no problem with him. I just not sure why he doesn't want to come on. But anyway, we have the interview with Chris Wallace on Sunday.
Yeah,
that lit up the headlines, at least for a day, which is a long time in the current news cycle.
Yeah, isn't it?
So there are a couple of things that I took out of it. What the main thing to me was that the assertion that President Trump made that we are the lowest number of COVID deaths in the world. I think it was deaths, right? That But in other words, the main thing is that with Donald Trump, it always has to be, actually, we're the best. Somebody says we're not doing so well. He says, no, we're the best. And it always seems to be a reflection on him. And I think anybody that's impartial, whether you like Trump, hate Trump, or love Trump, has got to agree that he is narcissistic. That's his thing. The world revolves around him and his ideas.
I think it's more of an insecurity more than anything else.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I think his sister or his niece or whoever it was that published the latest tell-all book, Mary Trump, she said that his father was overbearing and maybe he has to try to live up to his father's ideals, and he's kind of
those
insecure.
kinds of things.
Yeah.
Dysfunction in families is just for everybody to analyze. It happens to everyone.
So
I don't fault him for that.
No, everybody has their own psychological engines that drives them.
He put this country first for the first time,
right,
in my lifetime. So I don't fault him for a blessed thing.
Yeah, well, I don't fault him, but what I'm saying is that he has to change his approach for the American people somewhat.
Everybody says this about him. Everyone has made that sort of common criticism. Even in 2016, he's got to do this, he's got to do that. He's sitting in the Oval Office.
He is.
So,
for now.
Well, see, but this is the deal, is that he may see things that we don't see.
I know, but he doesn't articulate this vision enough.
What does it matter?
Because a lot of people can't follow him, and they.
So who are they going to vote for?
That's the main point. But right now, he's way down in the polls.
I don't buy that. I don't buy any of that polling.
I think that's false security.
I think what it is voter suppression. They did the same thing in 2016.
That could be maybe.
Now Hillary was much less liked than the historical, lunch pail Joe. But Christian, have some clips up there for us.
He's not in the office.
Oh, okay. But the reality is that it's the same scenario playing out.
I don't think so.
I don't see anything different.
No, I do. He has the power of the incumbency, but he has to connect more with the people.
And he has a record.
But his record is inconsistent.
His record is beautiful.
No, I don't.
Absolutely.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
All right, we got Chris back.
Christian's back.
Yeah. I think that if Donald falters, it's because he didn't do enough about populism, and you can argue until you're blue in your face that it was because of all the opposition he's had, and you're right. You're absolutely right. He is the most attacked president that I can think of in U.S. history, maybe with the possible exception maybe of President Johnson after the Civil War.
I felt like it was just Trump and me.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
That's how it felt.
Yeah, it's... So he does... I mean, that is true. But, for example, what he did was he had Kaylee, his assistant there, bring out a chart that showed the U.S. had the lowest number of deaths, but it only had a few countries on it. And Wallace's chart showed that we were 7th, and because he had more countries...
Right.
On the chart. So you can doctor the message whatever way you want, but to keep insisting...
Well, was that because they didn't trust the numbers coming out of those countries?
No, I think it's because Donald wants it to look good.
I don't. That's just too
and
obvious.
And his staff wants to make him look good.
I think it's just too obvious. Yeah.
But
now you switched to the briefing. You went from Chris Wallace to the briefing yesterday.
Well, no, that's the explanation that Chris Wallace put up on the screen.
Oh, I see what you
mean. He showed the two charts. And Donald's chart showed us, with the curve, downward sloping curve way at the bottom. The chart that they use, which include other countries like Russia and other countries, showed that we were more like 7th in the world rather than number 1 in the world for safety. But then, yes, I think that that press conference, conference with Wallace, I can't call it a press, the interview, yeah. The interview with Wallace, I think, shook things up. And I think that's why he came out like he did.
Shook things up where?
in the White House with this strategy, and that's why he came out with the coronavirus.
Well, I don't think it was his best performance, Trump's best performance, but it's Chris Wallace. I mean, who the hell likes him? I mean, nobody gives him any credibility. I sent him a message just a few weeks ago, highly critical of his program on Sunday morning.
But he's been getting a lot of pushback.
Who is?
Donald, from people.
When hasn't he got pushback?
When somebody like the Fox people start pushing back, not so much against Donald personally, but against his campaign. When they start saying, no, Biden, they've said it publicly several times. No, Biden does not want to defund the police.
Yeah, but he does.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, he does.
No.
He wants to reallocate funds that were earmarked for the police departments to go somewhere else. That's defunding the police.
Not in the sense of not in the sense of defunding all the police.
I can't believe you took that position.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
He's definitely for
he asked for the first statement he made was he asked for more money for the police. And then somebody came along and said, well, do you think some resources can go somewhere else? And he said, yeah.
Now, do you think that Joe Biden understands any question that comes at him?
Well, that's a good point.
Well, it's a damn good point. He's not going to be the president even if he's elected. There's going to be a team of people who will make decisions in his place. He'll be sitting in the Oval.
They're not going to be able to buck the donor class in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is not made up of people like Bernie Sanders. The Democratic Party is made up of people like Biden, the old Biden, the one that put all the people in jail.
Yeah.
That they're still in power, and they showed it during the primaries when they automatically. Everybody automatically before Super Tuesdays dropped their campaigns and supported Biden. I mean, obviously somebody made some phone calls at the DNC and promised them stuff.
Well, they've been writing this script as they go along.
Yeah.
They really didn't, and they still don't know how this is going to play out.
He doesn't even want to legalize marijuana, Biden.
Yeah.
It's not a progressive to the left plank that he's running on. The people that worked on the task force, which I said would be ridiculous and pointless from the beginning, they all say that. He's going to pick a neocon of some kind, Kamala Harris or somebody like that, to be his running mate, and we'll see in a couple of weeks because he's supposed to pick him in August.
Well,
you know the thing.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that nobody really knows where this is going.
Yeah,
and we won't know for a while.
They
have to play this by ear because they really don't have. The object here is only to get rid of Trump.
Well,
and you can demograph this thing all you want, but it's really just about how they're going to be able to push Trump out of the White House. It's the mail-in voting that we should be focused on.
Oh yeah, we need to stop that. I agree.
Because that will track the outcome well into February. Mm-hmm. That will delay the inauguration. That's what they've got in mind here.
It's the thing.
It's the thing.
Yeah. So but the coronavirus briefing that he gave was a good first step. Whether it's right or wrong, he finally picked a position on the mask and said that he wears a mask. People should wear a mask unless they can't social distance. All right. Now, I don't know whether that's good science or not because the CDC has been all over the place.
Yep.
Everybody else has been all over the place. But at any rate, he picked a position, and he sounded a little bit empathetic. That's what he has to do.
This is the kind of thing you look for in him. I don't look for that in him at all.
Well, I think most people
I want him to go in there and start cracking whips.
Not against the
Lopping
American
off
people.
Heads.
Not against the American people.
Which American people are you? Half the country aren't Americans.
The electorate. The electorate. Besides, the only base that we know he has is the Republican Party.
You're not talking about the American Taliban, the Visigoths in the streets, are you?
No.
Oh,
I'm talking about the American people as a whole.
Yeah.
Most Americans are not rioting in the streets. Right. So they want a president that shows a little empathy. He doesn't have to. I mean, Biden is all empathy. Biden is. I feel your pain. He's Clinton-like.
I think Trump has shown enormous restraint, especially in.
I didn't say restraint. I said empathy.
Well, that's
showing
part
that he
of empathy.
cares.
You hear it all the time. Buy local, think local, eat local, choose local, grow local. But who the heck really is local? You can shop with locals at the Nevada Market.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now, back to the show.
All right. Welcome back to Talking Truth to Power. And, the cancel culture has been working over time. And this time the target is once again Fox News, and especially from our point of view, because I don't really care about Ed Henry or even Howard Kurtz.
Oh, you just have no compassion whatsoever.
But the attacks on Tucker Carlson, which so coincidentally followed upon finding out that he had the highest ratings of anybody in cable news, even surpassing
Hannity.
Hannity, yeah.
In fact, 2 weeks ago, that show, was it 3 weeks ago, we were talking about the ratings.
Right.
In the evening, those 3 hours from, not Martha, she's so awful, isn't she? McCallum?
Oh,
my God.
Oh, she's such an earnest Catholic lady.
That's what it is.
Very
it's Catholicism, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. I can't watch. I could just.
She always has that fallen away priest on.
She is lucky to have that spot going into Tucker, I can tell you that.
Yeah, I'm sure that she draws ratings from that.
But anyway, that week, we were talking about it on Talking Truth to Power, and we didn't get to it because we didn't have enough time, but Tucker had passed Hannity that week.
Right.
So that was about a month ago. I don't know where the ratings have gone since, but yeah, Tucker is just very, very popular.
Right. So immediately upon that, we find out that somebody investigated and found out that his head writer had been saying some bad things on a bad website.
For years.
For years, yes.
Yeah.
Now, they always lead with one quote, and it is pretty nasty, but it wasn't him that said it. Somebody else wrote on this website that, I would never get LASIK surgery from a dark-skinned, N-word, asterisk.
Right.
Yeah. And then he replied, well, I wouldn't even get it from an Asian. And that was the worst thing that he said, apparently.
Yeah, no. And how did they know it was him?
I know.
Because he didn't write in his own name on that site. So how did that come to our attention?
Yeah, and the other things that he wrote, they had some reference to reality. They were... I wouldn't call them racist, per se, but anything that you say against the privileged, the minorities, is considered racist now.
This day.
Yeah, so there actually was a column that some Black Lives Matter activists were writing that they should get compensation because slavery made black people lose a lot of sleep, and so they need reparations for all the sleep they've lost.
So sleep deprivation is reason enough now?
Sleep deprivation.
Oh, okay.
And so, he wrote a throw-off line about how black people are always sleepy, and maybe something to that effect. And it wasn't that racist.
No,
really.
What I read about it was very, very measurably racist at all. I think he must have confided with someone on that site that he wrote for Tucker. Someone he thought he trusted.
Right.
He just gave himself away. And at some point, people tend to talk. And so then that person then mentioned it to somebody else, and then the entire nation hears about it. Because you can't tell me that he just volunteered that stuff. And also his role with Tucker Carlson in the same, in the same conversation. That must have been a very, very discreet relationship that he had with somebody on that site that it is how it blew up in his face.
Right.
And he's paying the price for it now.
And then So he lost his job, and then Tucker suddenly remembered he had vacation time coming.
He took an immediate 5 days.
Yeah. So were they under review for his job? That was the rumor, that they were reviewing him and whether he would stay in the job. Now, what I've heard is that there's a lot of people, not the majority now because Tucker is so popular, but there's a lot of people that would like to give Ben Shapiro that slot at night, which would be awful. I mean, that guy is a genocidal
it would be for me.
Zionist.
It would be for me. The problem I have with Ben Shapiro is that I think he's sort of mildly Asperger syndrome.
Oh, you think so?
I think he never, he yaks it up and he never stops.
I know.
It's hard to listen to him because there's an incessant conversation about him where there's no space at all.
Right.
The mind can't follow that quickly. I can do it because I intentionally listen and I wait till a commercial and then I kind of take a deep breath. but he's not, I don't think, audibly palatable to most people.
He's not ideologically palatable to me for the most part. But
that's the other part.
Yeah, right. But he's not. He's very hard to listen to. But there are a lot of people. He was on Fox today. He's on the radio here in Reno. There's a lot of people that would like him to see the job, to get Tucker's job, and let's hope that he never does. But then, the next thing was after he came back from vacation, and I was anxiously awaiting to see if he would come back on Monday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't. He's the most. How are they going to get rid of him? He's the most popular.
Well, I wasn't anxiously awaiting. I was kind of hoping. I would have been surprised if they did replace him, but
I never gave it a thought.
Yeah, I thought that he could have. I don't know why else he would suddenly leave the show for those 5 days.
Well,
they've done it before.
His sponsors have bailed out on him.
Yeah. Several have. Yes.
That's a bigger issue.
Yeah, if it wasn't for My Pillow.
That's right. You know what? I'm gonna build a better pillow than that guy.
And make it American made.
Absolutely.
In
my home state of Nevada.
Were you a crackhead?
I never was.
No. All right. Well, you don't have that going.
But I'd love to write an autobiography.
Now, the next thing that happened was the New York Times was doxing him his new home.
Yeah.
And he was afraid.
Now, that's serious stuff.
Yeah, I don't. That should not be done.
So if two can play that game. So if the New York Times wants to do that about him, he should start revealing the addresses of these reporters.
Right.
See how they like it.
And
this is how the Civil War develops.
Right. Yes. And then finally, if that wasn't enough, we have the sexual harassment suit filed by a Fox producer, Jennifer, somebody who I don't know. I've never seen her on any show. And then the liberal Sherpa, remember her?
She's awful.
Miss
Isn't she
Ayers?
Awful. I mean, honestly, I don't know why they ever brought her. And she made the rounds on all the shows.
Right.
And suddenly she's nowhere on Fox.
Right.
Now we know why.
We know why. Her version or the real version?
Well, I mean, it's legal. So
Yeah.
that's the end of the matter. She's paid the price for her visibility on Fox. Mm-hmm. But, she was hard to listen to.
Right.
I mean, everybody was having fun with her.
Right.
Basically what her role was on Fox. Everybody was laughing at her. I know I was. Mm-hmm. And in fact, you'd sit there and listen to a couple of sentences and you'd be tempted to switch around. She's that bad,
Right. So she never got her gig. She wanted a regular gig.
Right.
And
she didn't deserve one.
The number of appearances dropped dramatically last year, as you've mentioned there, Leland. And so she claims that she was tied to her chair when other people have said the only thing on her that attached her to the chair was her microphone that she could take off. And Tucker changed into a leather jacket in front of her. That was supposed to be sexual harassment.
Is that according to what she's...
Yeah, and then also both women claim that, Ed Henry is a separate issue. We know Ed Henry he supposedly sent the Jennifer woman pornographic clips and then of a woman One of them was of a woman showing her private parts and getting a job for doing it, a porno.
This is the charge that goes back about 3 years.
Yeah,
right.
With this is Ed Henry only, as far as I know.
Right.
And then he invited her to come up for a job interview after sending her this porno. But then she claims that Tucker and Howard Kurtz would let her know that they were alone in the hotel that night, that they were staying in New York and they weren't going home to their family.
Howard Kurtz?
Yeah, Howie Kurtz, does Media Matters? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so he's supposed to be the big sexual predator along with Tucker Carlson.
Kurtz,
yeah. And Kurtz is supposed to have said, "I've never had a host deny coming up to my room." So even, there's a liberal group called the Young Turks. I don't know if you know about them at all.
I've heard the expression in a variety of ways.
Yeah, they're a liberal organization run by a Turkish guy that used to work for Obama or something.
Was actually Turkish?
Yeah,
okay.
Sedyk is his name. He's Turkish-American. I'm not saying he's from... But anyway, even he said, look, this looks like a money grab, Tucker is doing well. Fox News is in the money. These are two disgruntled employees looking to make some money. It looks like
who has animus to knock Tucker off the air?
Oh, well, besides Ben Shapiro?
The anti-Trump media.
Oh, yeah, of course, the anti-Trump media, yeah.
Which is where she is.
Right.
Psychologically.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so they would...
whether they can cover those tracks or not,
well,
it's clearly it's in their interest that he go. So.
All right, so in the final segment, we're going to have another Jews in the News.
Are we?
And maybe we'll start off by talking about how cancel culture is a Jewish tradition.
Did you know that 4,000 years ago, the Earth's magnetic field was 5 Gauss? Over the last 165 years, scientists have measured the Earth's magnetic field and found that today it is only...
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Unable to listen to the whole show? A recording of today's program will be available later today. Visit americamatters.us and click on the podcast link. Now, back to the show.
And welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I am your host, Brendan Traynor, my co-host, Leland Faegre. And we have another edition of Jews in the News.
Do we?
Yes. And I have to give my ADL required disclaimer that we recognize that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. It's our greatest ally, and they don't throw gay people off the roofs in Israel.
That's a damn good disclaimer.
Yep, and also that whenever we notice Jews behaving badly, we must remember always and everywhere it's our fault. All right, but actually I have a little bit of a different Jews in the News today because I want to congratulate a Jewish person.
Okay.
And I'm talking about Peter Beinart.
I was just going to say, was it Peter Beinart?
Yes.
I was just going to say that.
Yes. So I am very pleased to say that there is a wise and wonderful Jews in the news today. And he is a liberal Zionist, a CNN contributor. He has written regularly for The Atlantic. He used to edit The New Republic and numerous other mainstream liberal credentials. And he dramatically broke from the safety of his mainstream position to announce in the New York Times in a column and also in the magazine Jewish Currents for the Jewish audience that he no longer supports the two-state solution in Palestine. And so that means also its framework, the Oslo quote-unquote peace process. According to Beinart, he's come to the realization that the only solution for the Middle East is a single state, a real democracy where both Jews and Palestinians are equal citizens.
So I guess we can just wrap up the show here and go home. Because that's not going to happen.
Well, it's not going to happen right away, but it's still very significant. And I know there's a liberal Jew that is anti-Zionist, Mr. Weiss. He has a web page called Mondoweiss, and he's always looking for hope. He's always looking for that needle in the haystack that shows that something is changing. Hope.
Basically what it is. And you describe him as liberal. You mean that in the modern context or the historical context of liberal?
The modern.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, left liberal. I mean, most classical liberals, with the possible exception of Ayn Rand, that, in the old days, were not Zionists. I mean, Zionism didn't come full force to America until the 1950s, So, but anyway, it is courageous for somebody like him to speak out. And immediately he was attacked by Alan Dershowitz. Now, besides being Epstein's attorney, who always manages to show up right before or right after something bad happens. Uh-huh. Yeah. Dershowitz has been the primary Zionist attack dog against what he calls self-hating Jews, or Jews who are not promoting Jewish values. That's another one of his cliches that he likes to use, against people like Gilad Atzmon and others. So Dershowitz immediately attacked him and said that if what Beinart says comes true, that would be the final solution for Israel. So basically he was calling Beinart a Nazi, which we all are. Anybody that opposes it's our fault, and we're all Nazis, right? We're all anti-Semitics.
Hope they don't spit on us when we leave the building today.
So... And he's right, basically, that this is the dagger in the heart of Zionism, the one-state solution, which people are not talking about now. But if somebody with Beinart's stature comes forward and puts it in that tone, it's at least a little bit of a chink in the armor.
Breath of fresh air.
Yeah, a little breath of fresh air. So,
is he still working at CNN?
As far as I know, I don't think they've canceled him yet. Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about cancel culture.
Makes you wonder.
Cancel culture actually goes back to the Judaic practice of Herem, which is when you expel somebody from this, from the Jewish society because of their beliefs.
Ostracized.
Yeah. And then the Christianity, which is an offshoot of Judaism, basically, changed the word, but it's the same thing as excommunication, right? That's which they have used to expel anybody that they deem to be a heretic. And so now after the
I'm proud to wear that mantle.
Yeah. So the the modern day Frankfurt School apologists, they call it cancel. So we're going to cancel you. So anyway, it's
I hate using their nomenclature though.
Yeah.
There's something about it, and the woke. I don't use that. I don't use it.
Right.
I don't want to use their terminology. Their semantical, analysis of and descriptions of things. Because I'm playing into their hand that way.
All right.
So I just choose not to use them.
All right. So after that part, though, we have another sort of a story in the same vein that we normally do on Jews in the News, but that is several journalists tweeted. One was named Sunny Handal, and another one was named Mahad Nawar. And they're not household words, but they caused a little bit of a Twitter storm. Basically, what Sumi said was that in isolation, Israel does a lot of bad things regarding human rights. So that's an admission right there. But then he says, is Israel uniquely bad? Is it worse than other countries? Not even close. So if you're obsessed by the actions of Jews, don't be surprised if people suspect your motives. In other words, don't be surprised if we can call you anti-Semitic. We suspect your motives. And I've heard this for a long time, even when I was working with Jewish liberals here in Reno. when the topic came up in the anti-war coalition against Bush's war in Iraq. And that's what they told me. You know, Israel is just like any other country. You know, why should you be so against Israel? You know.
You mean calling them out?
Yeah. Why should you call them out?
Right.
I mean, they're the same as anybody else. But actually, that's not correct. And there are some real reasons why Israel is not like other countries.
Are you going to tell our listeners why that's the case?
Well, I'm going to if I can find the notes. All right. Israel's military occupation of the West Bank and Gaza is the longest-running military occupation in modern history at 53 years. It features home demolitions, night raids, torture, abductions, imprisonment of children, harassment at checkpoints, killing of civilians, destruction of agriculture, and just daily humiliations at the hands of soldiers and settlers. No one can leave Gaza, including sick children, except with special permission. Sometimes children are given permission to go to a hospital in the West Bank, a Palestinian hospital, and there they can die without their parents being allowed to be at their side, because they can't get permission to leave. Fishermen in Gaza who venture past contaminated coastal waters are either shot or kidnapped by the Israeli navies. Those inside Gaza who cross or even get too close to the barbed wire fence are shot. There are credible reports the Israeli Defense Forces uses banned dum-dum bullets, often to cause leg amputations in young protesters. Many of the young people in Gaza hope to get out of Gaza by becoming professional soccer players, for example. And if their legs are blown off, that's no longer an option, obviously. Israel's siege of Gaza is the longest-running siege in modern history. Israel is one of the most aggressive countries in the world, waging war against Lebanon in 1978, 1982, 1996, and 2006. They have also attacked Gaza in 2004, 2006, 2008 and 9, 2012, and 2014. And most historians say that Israel itself started the 1967 war, which gave it its legitimacy in the eyes of most modern Zionists. Israel is the only country in the world that automatically prosecutes children in military court, where 99% are convicted. And in order to create the country of Israel, Israel expelled over 200,000 Palestinians. Israel was born from terrorism in the 1930s and 40s, which a lot of people forget, which was committed by outright fascist paramilitaries. These terrorists invented the letter bomb, which they sent to England and blew up British-mandated administrators, and killing and maiming several. If Israel doesn't want to be seen as a terrorist apartheid state, they should just stop acting like one. So if people say that I, or Leland and I, are a little too tough on the Zionists, let me make this clear. Although I can criticize the Jewish religion, you choose your religion. When you grow up, when you're 18 years old, you choose your religion.
Well, it's imbued from your parents early on.
Yeah, but you still choose it.
You still have to accept it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then I don't attack anybody because of their race or ethnicity. I only attack them because of their
behavior.
Yeah. And in the case of the religion, when I talk about the Talmud, only in the case of their voluntarily accepted belief system. So I have... As far as individual Jewish people, I always praise the non-Zionist Jews like Peter Beinart that have the courage to stand up for what is really universal truths.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's fair.
Okay.
It looks like our security detail is comfortable.
Yeah, so we'll see if this gets us canceled. Herem.